All right, so on the contour shoe project, you guys have to trim off your extra paper first before you start to mount and label. When we mount and label our still life projects, which will be our other 2D drawing that we're going to do in here, and that's actually the next project, you will not be trimming that paper. You'll be keeping that whole. So you will not trim that paper, so you don't have to worry about that step when you mount and label that project. Okay. All right, so everybody should have a piece of black paper. Okay, this is an 18 by 24 piece of black paper. Obviously, it's fairly large for this drawing, so we're going to be trimming this up. I've come up with this process where basically all you're going to have to do is make 2 cuts, so it'll save you a lot of time as long as you follow these steps the way that I'm showing you. So when you mount and label a project, and this is something a lot of people don't take into consideration when they look at art, is I always say 50% of an actual art piece is actually making it. Okay, the other half of the time you spend on that is thinking about it, coming up with your ideas, gathering any references that you need, all that kind of stuff. And then the other part of that is also too, the other 25% of that is just getting it ready to be present, get the presentation portion of it. So it could be putting it in a frame, could be putting it in a mat, could be getting it gallery ready, making a statement about it. There's just a lot that goes into it that a lot of people don't realize. So you guys are going to get a little bit of a taste of that today, okay? This is going to be 20% of your project grade. What we're doing here today, and then this, of course, we're not going to get through it today. We'll finish it up when you guys get back here next week, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you guys, and I can do it this way. We're going to make a 1-inch border all the way around this piece. Then we're going to have a label at the bottom, and then we're going to have an inch below the label, okay? And I'll show you the finished one here in a minute. So I'm going to, you want to take your ruler. You don't need your artwork right now, so put it off to the side. You're going to need a pencil. Okay, so you need a pencil and a ruler. And actually, in this situation, a regular pencil would probably work better than the 4H if you've got one handy. Because the 4H is so light, it's kind of hard to see. Now, I'm going to be using a white colored pencil because you're not going to see it if I do it in pencil on the screen. So I've got my paper horizontal. Okay, in elementary school, they would say this is the hot dog way. Okay. So what I'm going to do, if you guys look, and I'm going to zoom into this so it's easier to see. So I'm over here in the top left corner of my black paper. And if you look, I'm not all the way over here to the side, but I've got my ruler about 2 or 3 inches off the edge here. And what I'm going to do, I am going to mark where it says 1 inch on my ruler, and I'm going to make a mark like this, sort of like a long horizontal dash mark, if you want to call it that. And I did that right where the 1 inch mark is. Now again, I'm doing this in white colored pencil just so you can see it. You guys need to be doing this in pencil, regular pencil, because we do not want to see the marks on the black paper when we're finished, okay? This is part of the craftsmanship side of it, okay? So all I did was put my ruler just about 2 or 3 inches off the edge. I'm working up here in the top left corner, and I just made sort of a horizontal mark here where it says, match it up to where the 1 inch mark is. Okay, so technically that's my top border right there. Okay, I did not have to draw a line all the way across, and you'll see why that'll work. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is in that same corner. Now I'm going to flip my ruler so now that it's horizontal. And again, I'm about 2 or 3 inches off the top. So again, my ruler's not up here at the top of the paper, but it's down here. I want to make sure that my ruler is matched up with the edge of the black paper. Now, that's for my ruler. If you're using one of those clear acrylic rulers, if you look at it, you'll notice that the measurements don't actually start until it says 0. Okay? The measurements do not start at the end of the ruler, so keep that in mind. If you made a mistake on that first measurement up here at the top, you'll need to correct that. Okay, so make sure you're using the ruler correctly. my ruler, the measurements start at the end of the ruler. But on those acrylic ones, they're about an eighth of an inch. They start about an eighth of an inch off the side of the ruler. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing at 1 inch, but this time, when I make my mark, I'm going to make it tall. I'm going to try to make that pretty bright so you guys can see that. Okay, so now I've got a 1 inch border already mapped out at the top, and I've got my 1 inch border already mapped out over here on the left side. Okay, and again, I did that in white colored pencil just so you guys can see it better. You guys should be doing that in regular pencil. So the next step, believe it or not, is going to be to rubber cement our project to this black paper. So we're going to do that already. So the way that you're going to do that, you guys all have some rubber cement there. There's not enough for everybody to have one, but there are some extras over there in the bin. If you guys want to grab those, you can. I'm going to show you guys how to use the rubber cement. All right, so you're going to flip your drawing so that you're working on the back. And rubber cement, okay, the thing about rubber cement is that it is kind of messy, okay, but it's friendly to art. And the reason why is because if we were to use something like white Elmer's glue or even a glue stick, those are water-based, and a lot of times what it will do is kind of soak into the paper and kind of make it wet and give it wrinkles, okay? Rubber cement is not water-based. You can actually tell as soon as you open the bottle that it's not water-based. And because of that, it doesn't actually go through the paper. So that's a good thing, okay? The other thing that's nice about rubber cement is that it doesn't dry right away, so it does allow you to make adjustments to it even right after you put it down on the paper. The other thing that's nice too is if you ever decide you want to take your drawing off of this black paper, maybe the black paper kind of gets ripped or torn or bent, you can just peel it off of the black paper like it's a sticker. Provided, of course, you're not using a ton of rubber cement. So when you use this stuff, the first thing I do is I just wipe off a lot of that excess, so I really don't have a big glop on there, okay? And then what I do is I just put it right here in the corner. So the corners is what you really want to make sure get glued down. Again, I wipe off the excess every time I use it. So I'm going to get the corners really well, and it kind of looks like the top of an arrow. I get the corners first. And then the next thing I do is I kind of take from that corner and I just go in like this. That's how I put glue in the middle of the paper. Again, every time I'm wiping off that excess. And then just to finish it off, I take whatever's left on the brush and just kind of clean it off. So I'm not putting a ton all over the back of this. You don't want to, you can kind of see it, you don't want to because again, you'll never get that piece off and you'll create a mess, okay? So then all you need to do is just take this, flip it over, and you're going to use those marks as anchors. And then before I kind of take my hands and I push it down, I'm going to measure, remeasure, and just make sure and see I'm a little too skinny there. So I'm going to drop that edge down, move this to the side. So again, that rubber cement doesn't dry right away, so you can move it. So I just double check all of those, and once I like it, then I'm going to push it down with my hands. All right, I want everybody to do that step now. Okay, so right now, and I'm going to try to zoom out. I can't zoom out too much on this. Got it high, but so you're going to have a lot of paper over here on the right and a lot of paper left over down here at the bottom. But the next thing we're going to actually do is this label. So everybody should have a label, okay? So with this label, try to do this up here. Turn this over. There we go, so everybody can see. All right, for this label, when you fill this out, okay, you are going to be filling this out with an ultra-fine Sharpie marker, okay? So you're going to be filling that out with an ultra-fine Sharpie marker. The reason why is just because we want the information to stand out, okay? So when you go to an art museum and you see an artwork on the wall, you will always see a label that's next to it, and that'll give you basically the logistics of the work. The title of the artist, when it was made, where it was made, and even perhaps sometimes a little kind of like note or a text blurb about the story behind the piece, okay? Now with ours, we're just going to have the logistics of it, okay? So artist, that's going to be your name. Now when you write your name, you need to make sure that you write it and capitalize it correctly. So capitalize the first letter in your first name and the first letter in your last name. You guys can go ahead and write down your artist name right now, okay? I'm going to put Mrs. Gower on mine. And as always, with art, it needs to be nice and neat. So make sure you're using your best handwriting for this, because I do take off if it's sloppy. Okay, so media. Does anybody know what media is? Does anybody know what media refers to? Yeah, and that's right. There's another meaning for us in art. Media actually refers to the materials that were used in the piece, okay, to create the artwork, okay? So for us, we use watercolor paint and marker. We don't want to say Sharpie because Sharpie is actually a brand name. So I'm just going to put down watercolor, and watercolor is one word. I would have you guys put watercolor paint, but we don't have enough room for it, so we're just going to put watercolor and marker. And again, write it nice and neat. I'm going to skip title for right now, and we're going to go down to class. And again, it needs to be properly capitalized. You are in Fine Art 1. And then you also need to put your class period. You guys are period 1, okay? But if in your period 2, you'd put period 2. If you're in my third bell, you would put period 3. There are actually 5 different Fine Art 1 classes here, so we want to make sure that we know which class you came from. If you mess up on any of this, you can grab yourself a new label. Some kids actually like to do it in pencil first, and then they'll just ink over the pencil lines. All right, so for the title, okay, the title needs to be valid. What do I mean by valid? Title must be valid. Anybody know what I mean by that?
Has to make sense.
Yes, has to make sense. So, this is a contour shoe drawing, okay? This is a shoe. I would not be titling this project Cotton Candy and Bunny Rabbits because it has nothing to do with cotton candy and bunny rabbits, okay? So make sure that you're coming up with a title that makes sense. I do not accept Untitled as a title, okay? You have to come up with something. Now, it can be very creative if you want to, and that's fine. It can be very basic if you want to and just say my shoe, or if it's someone else's shoe in your house, maybe you stole your brother's shoe like I told you not to, you would say my brother's shoe, okay? It can be simple, okay, but it has to have a title. Now, as with any title, you need to properly capitalize it. Title of a book is the same thing as the title of an artwork, okay? So if I title this, I'm going to flip this over just so you guys can see it better. If I title this My Shoe, I need to capitalize the M and the S, okay? Because it's a title for an artwork, all right? So I want everybody, now if you can't come up with a title right now, that's fine. Some people kind of wait till the end to come up with the title. You can do that later, okay? Now I'm going to show you where this is going to go. I'm going to flip my project back. Zoom this out so you guys can see most of my paper here. This is going to go right underneath the artwork and in the middle. And I'm not going to do any measuring here. I'm just going to eye it in the middle, okay? So I'm going to take my rubber cement. Again, I'm going to take off all that excess rubber cement, and I am going to paint that rubber cement on the back of my label. I'm just going to go around the edges. I'm not going to really worry about the middle because this is a small piece of paper. And then all I'm going to do, make sure I put it right side up, I'm going to eye it in the middle, and I just want a little space in between the artwork and the label, just a little bit, not a lot. If I do too much, my paper's going to end up being huge. So I'm just going to eye it in the middle, press that down, and then I'm done with that step, okay? I'm going to go ahead and pause this, and then I'll let you guys all catch up, and then we'll start the next step. All right, so now we're going to start the next step. So everybody should have their drawing glued down and their label glued down. So again, we still have all this extra paper at the bottom and then over here on the right side. So now what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where we need to make our 2 cuts, and then we're basically done with this step. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and everybody all at one time, we're going to measure 1 inch off the right side of our project. And again, I'm using a white color pencil so you guys can see what I'm doing. You guys should be using a regular pencil. You do not want to see these lines when you're done. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 1 inch off the right. And I'm going to do it in a couple spots. And there's a reason for that. Again, make sure you're using your ruler correctly and you're reading it correctly. So if you've got one of those acrylic rulers, your measurements do not start at the end of the ruler like mine do. I used the metal one today for the demo just again so it shows up easily on the video. So after I make a couple marks on there, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to draw the line for where I need to cut. I'm going to use the same trick that I use for trimming. Make sure that the edge of your ruler is matched up to the edge of your paper and to your lines. That will ensure that you're cutting a straight line and it's perpendicular to this edge. So I'm going to draw then my line all the way down to the end of my paper. And this is going to be hard for you guys to see on mine just because, oh no, I can get you, I'm going to show you the whole thing. One more. So you can see. So now I have a line, there you go, drawn from edge to edge. And I need that because I need it for the paper cutter, okay, edge to edge. Now for this next one, I'm going to do this upside down just so it's easier to see on the video. Now what I need to do is I need to measure 1 inch below my label. I'm going to do it the same way I did the right side. Now if your label is not exactly cut straight, this could pose a little bit of a, not an issue, but a challenge. And I can tell you already mine's not exactly straight. When I go to the paper cutter will fix it for me. So after I make 2 marks off the bottom of my label, again, I'm going to take my ruler, match it up to the edge of my black paper, match it up to my marks that I made, and draw my line across. And I just need to draw it till it hits that other line that I drew right there. So now I know where I need to make my 2 cuts. Now when I cut, I'm actually going to cut this. I'm going to cut my shortest edge first, which is going to be right here. Because if I try to cut this, it's too long of a cut to make on the paper cutter. So I'm going to cut my right side first, okay, on the paper cutter. All right, so once you get to that point, then you're ready to trim your project. And we're almost done with the presentation part.